My brother and his wife insulted me, but they didn't expect what happened next. Head back home, you penniless, unemployed hag. What's the scam with you tagging along on this trip? My brother's words stung. Greedy? My disappointment in my family was as predictable as ever. Well, I'd give them a taste of their own medicine. While reveling in some solitary moments away from their company, I resolved to take matters into my own hands. Just then, my brother's voice chimed in on the phone. Hey, what's going on, sis? What have you done? My name's Lucy, a 29-year-old office worker, and for the past 3 years I've been with someone special, Russell. He's a genuine gentleman who not only treats me with kindness but deeply cares for me. We first crossed paths in college. He was my senior, and I often turned to him for advice on work or personal matters. He always listened intently and offered wise counsel. As we transitioned into the working world, we kept in touch, meeting regularly. Then one day, he confessed his feelings, and we embarked on a relationship. Since then, our journey together has been blissful, filled with shared moments and dreams of a future together. Then came the day when Russell popped the question. Lucy, I want to spend the rest of my life by your side. Will you marry me? Yes, we both agreed, and the decision to tie the knot was made swiftly. We shared the news with our families. Nice to meet you. I'm Lucy, I introduced myself warmly. Oh, so we finally meet. Russell has talked a lot about you, his mother exclaimed with a smile. You're just as lovely as he described, I replied, feeling the hint of shyness. Don't sell yourself short. Come on in, make yourself at home, she insisted kindly. Thank you, I said gratefully. Russell had lost his father a few years back, leaving only his mother in the family home. I was anxious about meeting her, but she greeted me with open arms over tea and snacks. We engaged in a delightful conversation, easing any worries I had about fitting into the family. Luke, see, you're truly a remarkable person. I couldn't be happier that you'll be joining Alan as his wife, my mother-in-law to be praised, her kind words catching me off guard and leaving me slightly flustered. I'm eagerly anticipating your wedding. Take care, Mom. Thank you for today, I replied, bidding her farewell as our meeting concluded on a positive note. A sense of relief washed over me. However, the thought of introducing Russell to my own family immediately dampened my spirits. The truth is, I've never been particularly fond of my own family. The root of this issue stems from the way my parents treated me throughout my childhood. Both of them were star athletes. Mom excelled in track and field while Dad dominated the soccer field. Their athletic prowess earned them scholarships to college, and naturally they expected the same level of athletic achievement from their children. Unfortunately, I didn't possess the same athletic talents they did. Despite their efforts to nurture my sporting abilities by enrolling me in various activities like basketball, swimming, table tennis, and even figure skating, I remained average at best. It was evident that my parents were disappointed by my lack of athletic prowess. Then came the arrival of my younger brother, Bobby. With aspirations of having a son, my parents eagerly enrolled him in sports as well. It turned out that Bobby had a natural talent for soccer. When the local youth coach praised his abilities, my parents were overjoyed and redirected all their attention towards him. Bobby is truly exceptional. He's something truly special, they gushed, their words implying my inadequacy. It seemed as though I was nothing more than a disappointment in their eyes. They lavished Bobby with attention and neglected me. Even as I progressed through middle and high school, while I dedicated myself to my studies and excelled academically, they dismissed my achievements, claiming that academic success held no real value. When I expressed my desire to attend college, they brushed it off, citing financial constraints, so I relied on scholarships to pursue higher education. Meanwhile, Bobby continued to thrive in soccer, earning himself a scholarship to high school. My parents couldn't contain their excitement. He's destined for greatness. We'll do anything for Bobby, they declared. Growing up in the shadow of such adoration, Bobby began to look down on me. Lucy, you're such a failure and a curse. Even Mom and Dad can't stand you. If you weren't around, they could invest all their resources in me. You're just dragging us down. Bobby's hurtful words were a regular occurrence, and my parents never intervened to correct him. You truly are a burden. Spending money on you is just a waste, echoed their sentiment, further crushing my already fragile self-esteem. Despite managing to secure admission to a decent college and landing a job at a reputable company, my sense of worth remained battered, perpetually overshadowed by Bobby's accomplishments. He effortlessly earned yet another soccer scholarship for college, and my parents beamed with pride. Meanwhile, I was struggling to make ends meet, burdened by student loans. While Bobby continued to bask in the warmth of parental affection, living at home, pursuing his education, and indulging in soccer, the road to professional success proved arduous. Eventually, Bobby's dreams of going pro fizzled out, and he had to settle for a regular job. Yet my parents remained steadfast in their pride, and Bobby continued to enjoy the comforts of home, content in his bubble. Every Christmas when our extended family gathered, my parents insisted on my presence. They would introduce me as their disappointing daughter while lavishing praise upon Bobby, their pride and joy. "But Lucy is thriving. She has a stable job," relatives would interject. No, Bobby is far more impressive," my parents would dismiss their comments, leaving me disheartened each time. It became a pattern, my family's consistent favoritism towards my brother and their disregard for my achievements. Eventually, I stopped attending these gatherings altogether. I avoided family events and hesitated to introduce Russell to them, knowing how they would treat him. Despite being aware of my family's attitude, Russell insisted on a family meeting. So after years of avoidance, I decided to return home. I called my mom to share the news. "What? No, how have you been? Or it's been too long." Her response was devoid of warmth or interest, a stark reminder of how little I mattered in their eyes, even after all this time. "It's been years since you reached out. What's the matter now?" My mom's voice came through, devoid of any warmth. Well, I'm getting married and my fiancé wants to meet the family. Could we arrange that?" I stuttered nervously. "Why bother with all that hassle? Just tie the knot and be done with it." Her response was disappointingly cold. Just as I was processing her words, Bobby's voice cut in. "Mom, who are you talking to?" he inquired. "It's Lucy. She's talking about having a family meeting because she's getting married," she replied. "Really? That sounds amusing. I'd love to see who this guy is. Let's invite them," Bobby chimed in, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "Fine, if Bobby insists," my mom relented, her tone lacking enthusiasm. "All right, you can come for the meeting," she added, a hint of obligation in her voice. After overhearing their conversation, I felt a whirlwind of emotions. Despite their lukewarm invitation, I reasoned that they did express some desire to see me. So on my next day off, I decided to visit my family. "Just be prepared for the worst. They might not treat you well," Russell cautioned me. "Yeah, I understand. But from that brief phone call, it sounds like you have quite the family dynamic," I replied, trying to lighten the mood. "This isn't a laughing matter. I've had my fair share of struggles with them," Russell reminded me solemnly. "I insist on meeting your family before we tie the knot. We'll keep it brief," I urged Alan as we drove to my family home. Upon arriving, we rang the doorbell, but no one answered. Resorting to my key, I let us in. As we entered the living room, I was taken aback to find my family seated on the sofa. What surprised me even more was the presence of an unfamiliar young woman. Deciding to start with a simple greeting, I spoke up. "Hello, everyone. It's been a while. This is my fiancé, Russell. A pleasure to meet you all," I introduced Russell, prompting my family's gaze to shift toward him. Well, I half expected Lucy to bring home some dull, unremarkable fellow, but you seem all right," Bobby remarked crudely, eliciting an awkward chuckle from Russell. "Bobby, who's the woman next to you? Your girlfriend?" I couldn't hide my irritation at Bobby for bringing an unexpected guest to a pre-planned family gathering, but Bobby's response caught me off guard. "She's my wife, Evelyn. We've been living here since we got married," he dropped the bombshell casually. "What? Wife?" My eyes widened in disbelief. "You got married?" I was stunned, the news hitting me like a ton of bricks. "Yeah, last year," Bobby confirmed, seemingly unfazed. I was left speechless, grappling with the realization that my brother had tied the knot without even informing me. As I tried to process this revelation, my raised voice drew Mom's annoyance. "You're too nosy. It's none of your business if Bobby got married," she snapped, brushing off my concerns. I felt a mix of hurt and betrayal. Dad then turned his attention to Russell, ignoring the tension in the room. "I'm not particularly interested, but what do you do for a living?" "You're marrying Lucy, so it can't be anything impressive, but let's hear it," he remarked bluntly. Russell's calm demeanor contrasted sharply with my rising anger as I clenched my fists in frustration. Alan gently restrained me, reminding me not to let their words get to me. "I apologize for any rudeness here. Here's my card," Russell said, extending his business card to Dad, who initially regarded it with little interest. However, his expression quickly changed. "You're a lawyer?" Dad exclaimed, his eyes widening in surprise. Mom, Bobby, and Maya shared in the astonishment. "Wow, that's impressive. Alyssa, prepare some tea for our guests, would you?" Dad declared, suddenly hospitable. "A real lawyer? How fascinating," he mused as the atmosphere in the room shifted. Russell couldn't help but be taken aback by the sudden change in attitude. "I never would have guessed Lucy's fiancé was a lawyer," Bobby remarked, echoing the sentiment shared by the others. "Does that mean you make a lot of money? Maybe you can buy me a designer bag for my birthday," Maya chimed in, her audacity leaving me speechless. It was astonishing that she would make such requests to Russell upon their first meeting. Nevertheless, Russell responded with a wry smile, handling the situation with grace. "Russell, you really shouldn't be saying such things to my fiancé, especially on our first meeting," Russell responded with a wry smile, addressing me with bold comments. "We're going to be family, so let's try to get along," Mom interjected, attempting to diffuse the tension. However, I couldn't shake off the sense of unease that lingered within me. As the families gathered for a joint meeting, both my parents and Bobby's family exhibited an unusual level of enthusiasm. Even my mother-in-law appeared somewhat taken aback by their fervor. Following the meeting, I took the opportunity to apologize to my mother-in-law, only to discover that Russell had already informed her of the incident. "Don't worry about it," she reassured me with a smile, instantly alleviating my concerns. It was a moment of relief, reaffirming my belief in her genuine kindness. 2 months later, Russell and I exchanged vows, with my previously indifferent family in attendance. Surprisingly, after the wedding, they began reaching out to us more frequently. "Why don't you and Alan join us for dinner sometime? We know this wonderful restaurant," Mom's voice would chirp over the phone. I couldn't shake the suspicion that they were eyeing Russell's money, given his profession as a lawyer, but I wasn't about to fall for their scheme. "We're tied up at the moment, so we can't commit to anything right now. We'll keep you posted when we're available," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. "Sure, we'll be eagerly waiting. We're flexible with our schedule," Mom responded, her enthusiasm palpable. I felt a surge of disgust. It was clear they were more interested in exploiting my marriage to a wealthy man than in building a genuine relationship with me. Hey, pause for a moment. Would you care to support us? Like this video and subscribe for more. Now let's dive back into the story. After maintaining distance for some time, Mom called again a few months later. "When are you and Alan going to join us for dinner, Lucy?" Mom's voice dripped with false sweetness, and I could practically feel her desperation through the phone. "Sorry, Mom, we're pretty swamped," I replied curtly, already contemplating ending the call. But before I could, she dropped a bombshell. "We're planning to celebrate my half-century birthday," she continued, her tone shifting slightly. "After all, your father and I did see you through high school. It wouldn't hurt to show a little gratitude." I could feel her frustration mounting, expecting us to start treating her differently. But deep down, I couldn't deny that she had a point. After all, my parents had supported me until I graduated college, even if I paid my way through it. Perhaps it was time to show a bit of gratitude as Mom hit the big 5. I relented. "All right, count us in for the celebration." "Really? That's fantastic. We're planning a family trip, so it'll be perfect for all of us to spend time together," I said, not entirely enthusiastic about the idea. But then I realized it could be an opportunity to enjoy some quality time alone with Russell. When I brought up the idea to Russell, he was on board, so we decided to join the family trip. Mom's reaction was pure excitement. "Could you handle the reservations? I'll send you a bunch of URLs for hotels and plans," Mom requested eagerly. "What, Mom?" I was inundated with URLs, all pointing to luxury hotels and high-end restaurants. I couldn't help but feel irked by their extravagance, but I reasoned that this might be a one-time indulgence. Reluctantly, I checked out the links and proceeded with the bookings. When I called Mom to confirm the reservations, Her joy was palpable. "I can't wait. Thank you so much," she exclaimed, brimming with excitement. At last, the long-awaited day for our half-century family vacation had arrived and our destination was sunny Florida. Excitement filled the air as we boarded the plane, with everyone in high spirits. Both my parents and Bobby, along with his partner, seemed to be thoroughly enjoying themselves. On touchdown, Russell and I made it clear to the family that we intended to explore on our own. Despite their attempts to persuade us to join them for souvenir shopping, we managed to gracefully evade the invitation and set off on our adventure. We arranged to reconvene for dinner at the upscale restaurant we had reserved. As Russell and I wandered the city, taking in its sights and sounds, time seemed to slip away effortlessly. Eventually, we made our way to the fancy restaurant, where our parents and Bobby's family were already waiting. "You're late," Mom chimed in sharply as we approached. "Well, we still have 10 minutes until our reservation," Russell calmly pointed out. Suddenly, their demeanor shifted. "We were talking to you," Mom retorted curtly. "What? Our business is with Alan, not you." Mom's words cut through the air, her tone sharp and dismissive. "Thank you for covering the expenses for this lavish dinner and hotel stay," Dad added, his gratitude directed solely towards Russell. Russell looked bewildered while Bobby and the others turned their attention to me. "You're finished here, Lucy. You don't deserve any of this. You're nothing but a burden," Bobby spat out angrily. "What are you even talking about?" I tried to reason, but their voices rose in unison. "Get out of here, you useless loser. You have no place on this trip," they berated me, their words dripping with disdain. Disgusted by my family's treatment, I realized their intentions to exclude me from the beginning. "So this is how it's going to be," I thought to myself, feeling a surge of determination. "You'll regret this." Without another word, I leaned close to Russell and whispered, "Fine, I'll leave now." Our parents and Bobby's family looked smug as they entered the restaurant with Alan. I remarked bitterly. I quickly made alternate arrangements. Thankfully, a decent hotel had a last-minute cancellation, so I secured a room and checked in. Settling into a cozy lounge with a picturesque view, I indulged in a cup of coffee to soothe my frayed nerves. It wasn't long before Bobby's call interrupted my moment of peace. "What did you do, Lucy? Russell's gone." Bobby's voice sounded frantic. "I have no idea. You know Alan, he's usually clueless but sharp when it counts," I replied, trying to keep my tone steady. "Sure, but this is different. I told him I'm staying at another hotel, so he should join me," Bobby explained. "Whatever you're kidding, Bobby," I retorted, feeling the surge of irritation. Bobby abruptly ended the call, leaving me to ponder the situation. Soon after, Russell appeared at my hotel, a mischievous grin adorning his face. "Did it work? Were they mad?" I asked eagerly. "Yeah, they were furious. They're hopeless," Russell replied, shaking his head in disbelief. "You were going to foot the bill and they still acted like that?" I exclaimed incredulously. Even Russell was taken aback by their behavior. We brushed it off and decided to treat ourselves to a meal at the hotel's fancy restaurant. Returning to our room, we unwound and woke up feeling rejuvenated the next morning. Eager to explore, we embarked on a sightseeing adventure. Wanting to avoid traveling back with our parents, we opted to change our flight to an earlier one. While waiting for our flight, Mom's furious voice pierced through the phone. "Hello? What's going on?" "I thought you didn't require my assistance," I answered calmly. "What's the meaning of this? Why is the hotel bill due? Check out," Mom demanded angrily. "That's how I made the reservation. Don't joke around," I replied, trying to maintain composure. "We can't afford $11,000 per person. If you're enjoying luxury, you should cover the expenses unless you want to end up in jail," Mom snapped back. "Stop it, you're so arrogant for a parasite," she spat out before ending the call. "You're the one who needs to stop. I had every intention of covering all the expenses for this trip, as a gesture of gratitude for all the years you've supported me, but you ruined it by kicking me out," I asserted firmly. "Wait, you were going to pay for everything?" Mom's voice wavered with disbelief. "That's exactly what I've been trying to tell you," I affirmed. "There's no way you could afford something like that," Mom countered skeptically. "Don't underestimate me. I work at the headquarters of a major corporation and I hold a managerial position. I earn significantly more than Dad and have substantial savings," I explained calmly. "Really?" Mom was left speechless, but at that point it hardly mattered. I had made my decision to cut ties completely. "I have to board the plane now, so goodbye," I stated, ending the conversation abruptly. "Wait, hold on," she muttered before I swiftly ended the call and blocked all their numbers. Fortunately, they were unaware of our address or workplaces, preventing any unexpected visits. However, my naive family made a reckless move by storming the law firm listed on Russell's business card. Their disruptive behavior led to chaos, with Bobby even causing damage to office equipment, resulting in their arrest. After indulging in an extravagant family trip, they now face the consequences of their actions, hefty damages, and fines to pay. Dad and Bobby were subsequently terminated from their jobs, and now they all struggle to make ends meet with part-time employment, trapped in a cycle of poverty and constant conflict. It's a stark lesson in karma. On the other hand, Russell and I continue to lead a contented life. I'm overjoyed to announce that I'm expecting, and we recently welcomed our beautiful daughter into the world. We celebrated the momentous occasion with my supportive mother-in-law. Moving forward, I intend to cherish my true family, Russell, my mother-in-law, and our daughter, and embrace a life filled with happiness and fulfillment. Let's conclude the story shortly. The events of that trip to Florida were a turning point in my life. My family, blinded by their greed and entitlement, had revealed their true colors. It was a harsh lesson, but one that ultimately set me free. I finally understood that I deserved better, and that true family isn't defined by blood, but by love and support. Russell and I, now a family of 3, continue to build a life filled with joy and laughter. We cherish each other, and we've learned to appreciate the simple things. We've learned to value genuine connection over material possessions, and to surround ourselves with people who truly care. As for my family, they continue to struggle. Their actions have consequences, and they are now reaping what they have sown. While I feel a pang of sadness for them, I also feel a sense of relief. I am no longer bound by their negativity, and I am free to create the happy and fulfilling life I always dreamed of. And that, my friends, is the end of my story. After experiencing the full journey of our story, we'd love to hear your thoughts. How did the story resonate with you? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay blessed. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next story.
Alright, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my 2nd year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. "All right, everyone's presentations are done." "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me. "There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer." He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. "Still here?" Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. "I'm leaving." I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick! What's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. "Do you know how much revenue we get from that company?" "We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs. Gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized." Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. "All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason." "What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do." "I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you." "Please." Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, "Yes. That's Nick for you." Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, "I'm very sorry." Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, "Get his boss here immediately." It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. "What is that idiot doing?" "All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next." Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. "If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you." I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was. as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. "Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize." Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. "What kind of training are you giving your subordinates?" Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed, I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry." Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." "Mike, what have you done?" Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here." "He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.